Today's event is a combination of keynotes, fireside chats, and panels. We're going to have our first panel. But before we start, I just want to let you know that another panel is going to start in the other salon for those of you who don't have seats here. I'm going to welcome to this stage the moderator of this first panel, Charles-Edouard Bouée, founder and managing partner of Adagia Capital. And we're going to discuss the enterprise transformation that generative AI is not only affording, but powering this day. Charles-Edouard, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll let you introduce our esteemed panelists.
Good morning. Difficult to follow Galileo and universe, but we're going to be landing on the enterprise impact. So this panel is about architecting the future, the enterprise revolution through GenAI. So I'm welcoming on stage my panelists. I will start with Florence Verzelen. She's Executive Vice President of Dassault Systèmes. Welcome on stage. She's in charge of portfolio strategy, sales services, sustainability, also on the board of Air France, Institut Montaigne, and the French Space Agency. Welcoming Emilie. Emilie Sidiqian. She's the CEO of Salesforce France. She has 25 years experience in tech and AI CRM. She's leading the #1 AI CRM company in the world. And she's driving digital and AI transformation for French companies. The equation is CRM plus data plus AI plus trust. She will talk about it. I'm welcoming David Martineau. David is the Deputy CEO and Managing Partner of SIA Partners, fast-growing consulting firm with a strong tech DNA, and he's leading SIA GPT, and for the last 5 years leading over 400 data scientists on AI, data science, and quant. I'm welcoming Gilles Babinet. Gilles Babinet is an entrepreneur. He's the co-president of the Conseil National du Numérique, a National Council of Data. He's also a member of the AI Committee for the French president. He delivered a report recently to the president. And he's also a digital champion for the European Commission. And last but not least, he released a book in March 2024 called Green AI, Artificial Intelligence for Climate. He's happy to sell books at the end of this panel. Last but not least, this is a commercial event, as you know. Last but not least, Victoria Weller. She's the VP Operation of 11 Labs. So she brings a background in astrophysics. She most recently worked for Palantir in New York, and now she joined 11 Labs to lead operations. 11 Labs is the leading audio AI company focusing on text-to-speech models, where she's facilitating hypergrowth, excellent, across employees, customers, and revenues. So let's get started on our panel. My first question for the panelists is around, because it's all about how we apply GenAI to companies. So why is GenAI a game changer for companies' performance? And I will start with you, Emilie.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having us. So last year, it was a fantastic adoption for all of us, let's be honest. But when it comes to companies, GenAI was more a test and learn approach. And what we managed to achieve with our customers is to say, okay, what are the use cases? It's not about AI, it's what I want to achieve, what is the purpose? And so we work mainly on 4 domains. First one was marketing, sales. The third one was around service, and the last one was around engineering and technology. And on those 4 fields, what we managed to see is that, yes, it can achieve productivity, but also growth. And when I can give a few examples, for instance, on the front office part, it was not a matter of choosing the right AI at the beginning. It was more understanding what is my data strategy and where are the main customer data, for instance, in our field, to foster growth and revenue, like for Gucci, for instance, they foster by 3 their e-commerce. If you take the hospitality industry, like companies like Accor, they have like 20 million clients on their loyalty program. Could you imagine, like, the volume of data to handle? And here they manage also, using GenAI to increase the conversion rate by 37%. So this is the kind of use cases that we work, together with the clients. For what? To have this year, how I can say, a more GenAI at scale. So last year it was test and learn, and now for companies it's truly about value and deploying really fast.
Thank you, Emilie. Florence, from the software side and some other industries, how do you see that?
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you today. And I totally agree with Emilie. GenAI is all about growth. Growth in research and development, growth in efficiency, productivity, but also growth in sustainability. Why? Because basically, if you look at some industry, life science, there is a race in order to find new treatment. Well, if you have the virtual twin of a virus, then with GenAI, you can basically send to the virus all the molecules that you know to see which one is going to be more efficient in order to fight the virus. So it's a real accelerator of R&D in life science, but not only. When it comes to productivity, if you look at GenAI, you can basically digitalize all the processes of a company and use GenAI to optimize everything. And for a company like a big escalator company, which is one of our customers, the fact that they were able to digitalize all the instruction for their escalator and were able to give it to their workers, was able to accelerate tremendously the ability of workers to repair the elevators or the escalators when there was a problem, where there was so many instructions before. So it's a real improvement in terms of productivity. And last but not least, when it comes to sustainability, the fact to use GenAI together with virtual twin, for example, in building and construction, can allow you to optimize energy efficiency of a building up to 40 to 60% more efficiency for a company like Bouée Construction. But even for a company like Dassault Systèmes, GenAI is a real game changer when it comes to the productivity of our own software. Because what does it do for us? Well, what it does for us is that it's able to code a lot quicker than our developers, some of the very easy code, which makes us save a lot of time. And this ability to code quicker is going to help us to be still ahead of the competition. So, well, GenAI is about growth, as said by Emilie.
Thank you, Florence. David, you're leading 400 data scientists.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Two things. First of all, of course, we are, as a consulting firm, we are also disrupted by the GenAI and AI things. So we are working for our own management consultant, I would say. Very simply, the idea is the same, to have more productivity and more growth, meaning that what we are trying to do is deliver to the consultants the tools that help them to give more value to the customers, because they will do things that they will not be able to do normally in an assignment where they have a limited time to do something. Here they can, I would say, dedicate less time on the things that are not requiring human, but they can be done by an AI, and then the rest they can deliver more value by trying to do some other things. This is the first thing. So we are trying to work for our own staff on the things, but there is also another thing for sure. We are looking a lot at what is happening to our customers, and we are with the 400 consultants and the 400 not consultant data scientists. We are helping definitely the consumers to go to AI and to deliver GenAI at scale. And I fully agree with you, Emilie and Florence, on what they have said. And if we go on a wider landscape, I would say there are two. It's quite like a matrix. We have today, I would say, three kind, according to me, three kind of use cases. We are management consultants, so we like a lot of use cases, which is when it goes with the value, with the cost, with the risk, whatever we want. But it's definitely in this year, which is now going at scale, not anymore testing the technology. We are going back to the fundamentals, which are starting from the use case. But if I look at the use cases, we will have three kind of use cases, according to me, for all the customers. The one that will be embedded in all tools. In Salesforce, you will have a lot of things with AI and so on. So you will do GenAI and AI, whatever you want to do or not. All these use cases will change our life because they will help us. Yeah, just give the name of Salesforce, but I can have the one of PowerPoint, Photoshop, whatever you want. It will be AI everywhere, and you will use it. This one is just a question of change, a culturation of the team to use those tools with the right way, but it doesn't give you any competitive advantage or anything because everyone will do it. There will be some second category of use cases where definitely I will call them the market standards. Everyone will do that, whether they are not embedded in the tool. And the only company that will not do it will be the one that will lose the competition of the productivity of the growth. And finally, there will be, and this is something which is quite interesting also, the real disruptive thing with a real competitive advantage. The real question is it available for anyone, or do we need for those ones to have very specific models that are very that cost a lot to be trained and so on? Maybe not sure. So this is like a matrix with these three kind of category on one side, and the other side, the one of the technology and the price for technology, from the embedded to the training of models. But definitely we are now in the place where everyone is implementing those things.
Thank you, David. Victoria, you are dealing with vocal GenAI. How does it work with your customers and employees?
Yeah, so for us, what is unique about 11 Labs, especially on this panel, is that without GenAI, we wouldn't exist. So for us, it unlocks quite a lot. It unlocks our existence. But across the field, I would plus one to like increased efficiencies and performance. Coders can develop faster using Copilot, for instance. Customer support with chatbots can be infinitely or definitely a lot faster. But one aspect of GenAI that is unlocked across companies as well, which is kind of a shift in the way to think about it, rather than decreasing the dollar amount that you spend, is like increasing the scope of what you can do. And we see that a lot in our customers, the smaller ones, where they created books maybe as a hobby and now can create an audiobook from that, where before that wasn't possible at all. And I think that applies to larger companies as well, of changing modalities and increasing modalities. Somewhere where a blog existed before, you can turn that into audio and create a podcast or read it out loud and increase your modalities that way. Or even increase the scope of what you're already doing. If it comes to dubbing, maybe before you were able to dub into 3 languages because of the resource constraints, but you're able to emerge to more markets and dub to more languages with the help of AI. So I think one great thing about GenAI is not just the increase in efficiency, but also the increase in scope that is possible.
Excellent. I guess I will ask you to put my books in Vocal AI. Transition to you, Gilles. You published a book, so you'll be interested as well. But I will not ask you about the book. I will ask you about in France and across the world. We look at public services and how they can be more efficient. We look at the European Commission, so you've given a report. I know that's cornering you in one angle, which is different than your entrepreneurial work, but this is where I think the audience is interested. What does GenAI do to public services and Europe?
Thank you. So, yeah, it's a very angled question. First of all, I'm very thrilled to be here. I think that the vibe around here reminds me of 1995 when internet got in France. You know, it's very comparable. So, first thing I wanted to say. So, regarding the public services, it's obvious that it can do a lot, especially in France, probably. But in most countries, the government are struggling with producing more sophisticated public services, and it's not going well. So it's probably one of the key spaces where we might see the efficiency doing some result very quickly. In France, for instance, there are a lot of different trials of what we could do with GenAI, LLM at large. And I believe one of the key spaces where it's probably interesting, it's environment. Because if you think about it, if you want to achieve the 2050 agenda, you need to spend 3 trillion on a yearly basis. So no one has this money. And it's big luck that at the same time that we have to deliver this, we came with a productivity tool, which is GenAI actually. So I could very well see GenAI being very much oriented to dealing with these environmental problems. And I believe that there are some common, I would say, characteristic both from AI and environment. Environment, it's very complex. It's a lot about multifactorial systems. And what GenAI is good at is dealing with multifactorial systems. So whether you talk about, I would say, electricity grid, farming, transportation, supply chain, and so on, it's all about complexity. And if you want to increase the quality of the production and decrease the externalities, I think that we'll discover along the run that GenAI might be one of the key tools to deal with our environmental issues.
Thank you, Gilles. It reminds me your comments on a discussion I had at the World Economic Forum with Al Gore on environment versus AI. He said environment, the challenge is everybody wants to live in a better environment, better water, but nobody is willing to pay. On AI, AI will bring a lot of value to the society because there will be less car accidents, less mistakes of the doctors, but nobody wants to have this happening for themselves. So maybe you're at the crossroad between the two. Now, I want to have your recommendation on what it means for people in this room and companies and suppliers and people who are starting AI companies. What should they start with, Florence? What should they start with?
Thank you very much for the question. Very good question. And as Emilie was mentioning, GenAI is all about use case. And to do your use case, you need data. So the first question companies should ask themselves is, in the context of this use case, when I want to increase productivity or I want to increase innovation in my product, what kind of data do I need? Is it the data about the materials that are used in my product? Is it the data about the sustainability effect of some processes? But start with use cases and data, because GenAI is working as long as you've got data and as long as you've got good data. That's my first recommendation. Second recommendation is skills. Actually, if you ask a CEO of NASDAQ, 81% of them will tell you that they are lacking digital skills for their growth. So the idea is, of course, not that you ask your people in your teams to be able to code GenAI, because we have some very good company for that. But it's very important that your teams are able to prompt well, to ask the right question to GenAI in order to use it in a meaningful way. So skilling and upskilling the people to make it happen in your company is, for me, the second very important thing to do.
Thank you, Florence. Emilie, from your editorial lines and CRM?
I was trying, to complete, not to repeat. But, if you take, the average IT landscape, for a global company, it's 1,000, technology vendors. If you take a mid-sized company, it's roughly 150. And if you take a small business, it's 20, 25 IT vendors. So I think that the first point that is going, to happen when it comes to GenAI is that, it will, reinvent the way you're going, to choose the partners and the vendors in the field. And in this way, I think that there is today, or maybe, yes, in the landscape, you have two schools of thoughts. The first one is to say, okay, I'm going to provide as a technology vendor the UI, the LLM, and the data storage. That's the first trend. The second one is to build an open ecosystem when you will keep, if I may say, the driving seat and orchestrate in your own way the way you want to have, the GenAI deployed in your company. So it's not about choosing only one LLM. It's about having the right ecosystem of LLMs. It's about having a hybrid mode even in the data storage, and it comes, about also what values you want to share with your vendors. And I think it's a key point to tackle. The second that has not been shared so far is to say, yes, it's about adoption and so on and data. Do I really need to clean all my data when it comes to GenAI? The answer is no. But actually, most of the customers, they say, okay, I just want, to spend like a first year to clean my data and secure the results and so on. And today, the GenAI enabled the companies to have fact-based and also accuracy in the results, even if it's not like 100%, it's, by far enough to bring value to the company.
Thank you, Emilie. Gilles, sorry. You delivered a report to the French president Can you give us insights on what it means for the ecosystem? Because you were talking about 95 internet.
Yeah, it's very much about the keywords that Emilie just mentioned, ecosystem. You don't only need to have like skills or software infrastructure, you need to have a lot of things. And if you are able to gather all these things, which is obviously infrastructure, skills, but also experimentation, a playing field would let you try, for instance, because it's also a lot about new usages. Think about autonomous car. If we were to have an autonomous car soon, probably most of you won't have a car anymore, because that wouldn't make any sense. You would like use a kind of Uber that would be autonomous all the time, like in San Francisco, and it would be much cheaper for everyone because you would share the investment capital in a car among many people, like does a taxi, but with lesser cost because you don't have a driver. And it's the same type of things everywhere, new experiences. So you need to have a playing field which lets you experience new experience. And I think it's very much up to the government to create this field, to be able not to be blocked by regulations and things like that. So we very much pushed to let this sandbox at the national level be created so that we can experience new forms of building, new forms of living, transportation, and so on. I think this is very key. But you need to have all elements. If you miss just one, you don't do much. So it's one of the things we believe which is very important. And it's also, I would say, a good interaction in between regulator and innovator, which is probably the most complicated. It's up to the innovators to bring these new experiences, not to the government. The role of the government is to let them go and to let them scale. Should it work?
And that's what you said to the European Commission as well?
Yeah, everywhere. I'm having a discussion with a commissaire this afternoon. We're having a long discussion with the commissaire of innovation. And it's exactly right this point that we're going to talk about.
Victoria, you were mentioning video and audio. Can you give us examples of the new ecosystem you're entering?
Sure, for sure. So we are approaching several verticals. One of them is publishing, where I mentioned that a news story can now also be listened to rather than just read, or in the media with dubbing that I already mentioned. But there's also the gaming industry or the advertising industry, the chatbot industry. So almost everywhere you look, there is an opportunity to implement text-to-speech AI. In terms of advice for implementing, I agree with what has been said so far. Like, know the value of your data, how can you leverage that, make sure that your employees are upskilled in integrating chat AI into the way they work, but also check your assumptions. Like, think about, is it about using GenAI or is it not about using GenAI? It's definitely here to stay. The cat is out of the box. And the second one is, like, it's not done. We're not finished. So when you approach new GenAI as vendors, they don't have all the answers yet, and maybe that's a great opportunity to enter those discussions as a partner rather than as a consumer, and start building with them together. And I think that would be a really organic way to stay ahead and stay abreast of the GenAI wave and get your foot in the door and partner up on those developments.
Thank you, Victoria. David, you're a consultant like I was in the past. So I'm sure you've developed a methodology, 7-step or 6 steps or 9 steps.
Sorry. In fact, I was definitely agreeing with what you said, Emilie, in the beginning. The landscape has changed from this year compared to the year before. Last year, I would have said very simple. You have first to acculturate the people, let them do, let them play, and secondly, test and learn with an approach which is not at all the one I will recommend as a consultant, which is try the technology, see what you can do with it. This was last year, and I was thinking it was so much disruptive that it was definitely the right answer. As of today, we do have more feedback on what we can do with those things and so on. So now we can definitely have something which is more like a methodology, and this methodology is based on our side, our 6 or 7 pillars, as you said, but it means just this is a very deep transformation of the companies. So one is definitely about the strategy and the way you want to go for growth and productivity where you want. Of course, there's a pillar about the value. According to me, it's all a question of about use cases. Use cases is the way you will see what kind of problem you are solving and where you will be able to find a return on investment. And for sure, it was not the landscape of last year, but this is today. We are back to this normal thing, I would say, and trying to find the value where it's coming from. Secondly, there is a business model to be developed as well around that. That means it's about also the ecosystem and the way you are building with partners and the way you want to make or buy the things, which is quite important for those things. For sure, but I will finish by that depends a lot of the company. There's a point about according to me, the delivery model. One more time, we are all speaking about it was agile things, the way you deliver on the things, but it's not exactly the same with AI. Sometimes it's not easy to conciliate what you want to do with agile methodology and the way you will deliver and the way you are in an environment which is moving so fast that every 2 or 3 weeks, what you are doing is outdated with new models are coming and so on. But if you always start or restart every 2 weeks from scratch with a new model and nothing, at the end of the year, you have delivered nothing. So there's a point about the delivery model for sure. There is a point which is about the people. And you have already spoken about that, which is upskilling, reskilling. I would say I need to plan the workforce, what they have to do, what kind of new kind of skills I do need, and how I will make sure my people are acculturated about that. And there is a last point, according to him, which is definitely about tech, a bit specific about the way you want to have an ecosystem with tech players, because maybe it's for a lot of companies, it's the right way to have the right response to their needs. But if I want to conclude on that, there is a point which is, according to me, the key today, is that when we speak like that, we are quite speaking to large companies. One of the big points is, how do we do that to small and medium companies? It's good to have a 7-pillar roadmap with, when you have a company of 100 people, I will do 7 pillars with a task force on every of them. Okay, all the company will be busy on my GenAI transformation. It's not possible. So according to me, one of the big keys of the coming years is how are we capable to deliver the things so that small and medium companies are capable to use that GenAI for their own transformation. So of course, one of the answers is what is embedded in the platforms, but it's not the only one. And this is, according to me, the next challenge.
Okay, let me be provocative. I was recently talking to the CEO of a CAC 40 company, and they introduced GenAI for programming, and they had an incredible productivity increase by 35%, but the benchmark is 4x. A programmer of good quality, new, would have a 4x performance. So is it the time, I mean, this is from the example, is it the time that we have to fire all the employees and re-recruit them? I will tell you one story which you may know. Who knows in this room about NUMI? N-U-M-I. Okay, it's a factory in California. It was the worst factory in the world of General Motors. So they decided to sell it, and they sold it to Toyota. Toyota came, and they decided to fire every single employee. That was the bad news. The good news is they asked every single employee to reapply for the job, which they did, and they took 98% of the employee. And 5 years after, this factory was the #1 best factory in the world of Toyota. So it shows that you can transform people, but you have to reset. So what about this example of if you just apply to the existing people of a company, you get 35%, and if you want to get 4x, you have to reset. Who wants to take that question?
Well, first, let me tell you that Toyota is using the 3D experience platform of Dassault Systèmes, and this is clearly one of the reasons why they're performing.
Maybe this is the reason.
But the other interesting point is I think GenAI is really bringing superpowers to your team. So it depends. It of course depends. What's super important is to explain to your employee how they can use it, and even more important, feel that they can feel free to use it without threatening the job of the users. And it's also about the explanation that GenAI is bringing more opportunities that it's going to kill jobs. Actually, we are going to be more efficient to do more, and it's not just going to reduce the jobs of younger people. The issue with GenAI, in fact, and when it comes to upskilling, is what do you do with the young people? Because basically, GenAI is super interesting when it comes to do the easy software, easy to do software, but that it's still taking painfully a lot of time. And the fact is, by reducing this entry job level, you are able to bring this 4x productivity. But then the question is, how do you bring the 20 years old, the 25 years old to a level of a 40 years old where they're going to be able to use it productivity? So for me, there is a difficulty, which is to still bring the right people at the right level to use GenAI and to upskill everybody.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, just one comment about that, because it's exactly what we see in a lot of companies where we are going. We do have a lot of people that do ask the simple question, I'm looking for a GenAI tool that can replace all my interns. That's very good, but if we have no internship period for anyone, how do we get to the next stage? So for sure it's not the right thing, but this is the question I have 50% of the time when I'm come to speak about use cases. The use case is replace the intern.
Well, there is a lot of internship at Dassault Systèmes.
Yeah, we do have also as well, but so this is a question. This is the right question. Yeah, for sure, we do not need to replace the insurance. So we have to reinvent the things, and we have to leverage the AI for what it can bring for everyone, and not replacing certain level of employees that do the most simple tasks. For sure.
So there are two places where we've been telling everyone that there should be no more employees in the future. It's coding and accounting. And actually, these are the two places which are the fastest growing, and it's been the case for the last 30 years. If you think about coding, we had a lot of productivity without AI, like AWS and so on, cloud infrastructure. The fact that we don't need to do the YAS thing anymore, it's a given productivity to anyone, So. I'm not afraid about the additional productivity that would bring GenAI in the field of coding, because we all need coders everywhere. We're going to have software everywhere. So I think it's a luck that the most boring part of the coding, like parsing and so on, we're going to get very soon rid of it, like we are now rid of all the infrastructure software part that we had to build. I can tell you a lot of anecdotes on which we spent, like, I don't know, maybe months before just typing a single code line of what we want to do, really what we want to build as an experience. So sorry to be a little bit straightforward, but I don't buy this bullshit of, like, the coders being replaced by anything close to GenAI soon.
Emilie?
I think there's a difference between employment and employability. And yes, there is, like a clear fear about, saying that you're going to lose your job because of AI, and I can understand it. Now, I do believe that you don't lose your job because of AI, you lose your job because you don't know how to use it, which is, we come back to employability. And there is also a difference between the pro code and the low code, because you talk about the age. I'm not sure about the age, but more about, the skill shift, the massive skill shift that we have in the society, where we will need to have micro-personalization and a fantastic, training program for the ones that are, super smart and super skilled, highly skilled, to do pro code. And on the other way, also, to address GenAI, for everyone, and to democratize the use of GenAI by having also tools to develop low-code mode and the features. So I'm also positive, but with the sense of urgency when it comes to massive trainings.
Thank you. Victoria, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to add that it's also important to note that we're not there yet. Like, at the moment, it's not that we can put AI forward and do all the coding for us. There are still imperfections and hallucinations, so it's important for a human to stay close to it, a human to be in the loop, and therefore it's more of a machine plus human rather than machine instead of human question.
Maybe it would be interesting for this group to, for the people in the room to have an example of hallucination that you encountered in some of your projects.
You definitely see it, like when I use ChatGPT on a daily basis, I get hallucinations here and there where you have to double check and fact check, don't just blindly accept all the answers. But more specific to 11 Labs and text to speech, depending on the input text, sometimes the output is not what you expect. There's some like screaming and Darth Vader imitations that are not actually the intended output. And so in the audio space, it's just weird sounds that are examples of hallucinations. And you don't want to just like output that into the world. You do want to have a listen first and then regenerate in order for it to be listenable.
Other example from the panelists on hallucination you encountered with the president or with the clients?
This is a key point to remove hallucinations and independence on the use case you want to have for sure. But one of the key points is the way we are building the relevant software, so that and relevant way of using the AI, which is a part only of the answer of the use case, to avoid hallucination. But for example, we do have built a lot of tools around compliance and things for building CSRD reporting and so on. For sure, if you have hallucination in the middle of that, this is a nightmare. So we have to make sure that we tune the algorithm so that we prefer not to have an answer than to have a fake answer. So this is a part where we still need developers and the data scientists, because for the moment the tools are a bit limited for doing that.
I think that what Victoria just said is really key. Is one will be able to let the machine do the job itself, you know, and it's not. This moment is not close, and I will leave that in many places. It's kind of an issue. So we won't let any machine do the coding without having someone supervising the coding, because it wouldn't work at all. And I think that, you know, the key thing is to achieve, like we did, for instance, with autonomous cars, is to have something which is so good that we can let it go autonomously, actually. And in many spaces, we are very not close to make this. And I believe it's one of the key bottlenecks of the LLM at large. You know, maybe we will shift to something different because we won't be able to move beyond the 95% that we need to achieve to make this system become autonomous and transactional.
Thank you. As we're coming to the end of this panel, I want to ask each panelist what you would like the people in this room to remember from this panel, starting with you, Gilles.
One key thing is we've been talking a lot about the externalities of AI, and I'd like this panel to think about reversely the positive externalities that AI can do, and that maybe in some day soon it will be the main force of decarbonization and restoring the ecosystem at large.
David?
I've said at the beginning that the landscape has changed since last year and this year, but anyway, I will keep the same keywords I was always using since a couple of months and last year, which is acculturation is key. And it has to start by the XComs, definitely. So now maybe it has been already done in larger companies, but it's not the case in medium one and so on, and even subsidiaries of large companies and so on. So definitely acculturation is key. Start by the XCOM, then extend, and starting by the XCOM could be doing some prompt engineering and testing the prompt to be able to see that definitely depending on the input you have very different outputs. It means all the teams around have to have been trained. So acculturation is key for GenAI.
Florence, one sentence.
Well,
it was a long one sentence, David.
Yeah, I have not full stop in the middle.
comma.
I think generative AI is really bringing superpower to companies to innovate, be more productive, and be more sustainable, as well as was said by Gilles. So I think it's time to begin the experimentation, because as was said by David, if you don't experiment now, you're going to be late.
Thank you. Victoria?
One aspect that also addresses some of the concerns that we spoke about today, I think, is do not only think about AI as something that can increase efficiencies or bring down cost, but also something that can unlock doing more and just really expand your output.
Thanks. Emilie?
So it's like dopamine, you know. You were talking about, you know, the purpose and how to define the positive purpose, and I think it comes with trusted AI and also choosing the right AI ecosystem to keep our critical thinking.
Thank you. We are wrapping this panel. I will say one word, a teaser for my fireside chat with Laurent Alexandre, where we'll talk about AGI, the end of work, and much more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.